That's a tricky one, Gary, but what we do is we use sophisticated cash flow modelling to project forward contributions, current pensions, and ultimately it depends on what a client wants in retirement, and then we can obviously forecast the longevity of that client potentially. There's various ways you can draw a pension, whether it's an annuity, whether it's drawdown, but we can give people reasonable assurance based on various ages of what is achievable. So ultimately it comes down to what the client needs are, and obviously we then sort of forecast backwards from there. So obviously this depends on a number of different factors. So what roles clients are doing, what their pension contributions are, and ultimately the stock market and various pensions investments will have different growth rates. We would normally use sort of reasonable assumptions around growth rates to give clients a reasonable assurance of what the pots might be worth. But obviously, ultimately, depending on how they draw those pensions, how long they may live, that will depend on what they can draw from those pensions. So that's one step in the process.
Well, Tom, this is going to be personal to you. It takes into account factors like what you've already put into pensions and contributions you've already made, as well as the lifestyle that you're going to want in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
As a rough rule of thumb, you should be looking at putting in about 15% of your earnings on a monthly basis. Another rough rule of thumb is you should be looking at building up a pension pot of around about 10 times of your average annual salary. It affects it in two different ways, Tom. Firstly, what you have to think about is if you're retiring early, that's before state pension age, you're going to be putting in a lot less money than if you retired at standard pension age. So you're going to have a smaller pension pot that you're going to be able to draw on when it comes to retirement. As well as this, because you're retiring early, the pension pot has to last longer. So when you're taking your monthly withdrawals out of the pension, you're probably going to have to take less than you would have taken if you retired at normal retirement age.
Well, Gary, the allowances are fairly generous. They've gone up recently. It ultimately depends on what you're earning, though. It can be complicated for higher earners. So what we do is we would obviously take the individual circumstances into account and work out what is allowed. We can also use what we call carry forward allowance, which is a previous unused allowance. The calculation can be quite complicated, but obviously the benefits are fairly significant with the tax relief. Well, it depends on the individual. So with pensions, we're allowed to take up to 25%. It's a tax-free lump sum, and that's quite a popular option for a lot of clients. There are two different routes you can go, which is a drawdown versus an annuity. And really, if you don't need the lump sum, it can be more advantageous to take it as an income via a drawdown. So you're not wasting the tax-free lump sum, you're just taking it over time and having a more efficient income. Obviously, if you need the lump sum to repay mortgages or do other various projects or gifts and so on, then obviously the lump sum in one go can make sense. But if you're going to buy an annuity, the annuity is all taxable, so therefore it would make sense for most people to take the lump sum before you take an annuity.